If you're on the hunt for a phone that cuts out some of the modern smartphone distractions, but you aren't quite ready or able to give up access to certain smartphone apps, then this might be the phone for you. This is Minimal Company's MP01, more commonly known as the Minimal Phone. What started as an Indiegogo pipe dream is now a reality, and with mass production on these phones underway, and almost all the early project backers, myself included, having their phones in hand, you can go ahead and buy one of these yourself right now too, if you want. The question is it worth the $499 US or 700-ish Canadian dollar price tag? Well, after taking this phone with me nearly everywhere over the past month, I've got some thoughts about it. And hopefully this review will help you decide whether or not buying the MP01 is worth it for you or not. Now, there are a lot of things about this minimal phone to talk about, but we should start at the beginning, and that's its design and the hardware on the phone itself. So the minimal phone is a 5.6 inch by 3 inch slab in the hands, coming in at just over a 1/4 inch in thickness and weighing about 165 grams or 0.35 pounds. At the time I'm making this video, it comes in 3 different color finishes. This one here that I have is the Pebble, which is all white, but there's also Onyx, which is an all black version, and their Fusion, which has black borders around the screen, but is white everywhere else. I think they all look pretty good design-wise, but the white is definitely the color to go for and probably the cleanest, and the reason is the Onyx black finish is a fingerprint magnet. So if you want something that's a little bit cleaner and you don't want to have to rock a case, Pebble or Fusion is probably where it's at. It also comes in 2 different memory and storage configs. You can get it with 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, or 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. Mine is the one with the higher memory and storage config. Now, some people online, especially if you've watched my unboxing and initial hands-on video, which I will link down below for you to check out if you haven't already, you should probably do that before you watch the rest of this full review. They're saying that the minimal phone is just too big, but I actually think it feels pretty good in the hand, although I do have larger hands and I'm used to handling and using a larger phone. I do agree with some comments about the edges of the phone being a bit sharp, so depending on how you hold it long term, they can dig into your hands a bit, but you're not gonna hurt yourself using this phone. And for the most part, the design is well executed and well done. Over the long term though, I must say, I do have some concerns about how this phone will stand up over the test of time because it is fully constructed of plastic. So although it is a little bit thicker and bulkier, and therefore feels maybe a little bit sturdier than your traditional modern smartphones, which are nice and razor thin, I do think one good drop would probably be the end of the minimal phone in its current setup and design. So at the top of the minimal phone is a speaker and proximity sensor, followed by its first key feature, the 4.3 inch 600 by 800 pixel 230 ppi resolution e-ink display with front lighting. Now right off the hop, it is worth pointing out that the resolution of this particular e-ink display is not quite as good as what you might see on other e-ink devices out there, such as the Kindle. And with e-ink, the higher the resolution of the display, the sharper and the more clear printed text will appear. It is easy to understand why Minimal used a lower PPI resolution display though, because that makes it able to refresh faster. This is a smartphone after all, not purely a reading device. So with the Kindle, it makes sense. You want the text to be crystal clear, as sharp as absolutely possible. With this phone, Minimal wanted to strike a balance, and I think they've done a pretty good job of doing so. But I'll talk more about the actual use experience with this phone and how that e-ink display factors into the overall experience of owning the Minimal phone in just a little bit. Below the e-ink display are 3 capacitive buttons. You've got one that goes back, one that toggles the app switcher, and you've got a home button branded in the Minimal logo motif. On the left-hand side of the phone is its SIM tray right at the top. It supports dual SIM, and there is a flash card slot in here as well to expand your internal memory. The Minimal phone supports 2G GSM, 3G WCDMA, and 4G LTE, meaning it should work on just about any carrier, any band out there anywhere in the world. Below its SIM tray are 3 buttons, a volume up and down rocker, pretty traditional, along with something a bit different, a refresh button right in the center. You can press this button anytime to refresh the ink display and clear up what is known as ghosting. Now, if you've seen any of my videos about the remarkable set of tablets or you've used any e-ink device before, you've probably experienced ghosting. It is, unfortunately, one of the drawbacks of e-ink technology, at least at this point in time. On the right-hand side is the power and unlock button, which has an integrated fingerprint reader. Well, I've found it to be pretty reliable over my month or so with the phone. not many misses. It's not the fastest fingerprint reader out there by any means, but it gets the job done. And at the bottom of the front of the phone is its full-size 35-button QWERTY keyboard in all its clicky backlit glory. This keyboard's backlight has a nice adjustment level, so you can crank it up, get very bright. It makes it perfect for using in any setting. There's not a ton of travel in the keys, and they are a little bit on the small side, especially if you're like me and you have bigger hands, but they do have a pretty nice feel to them. However, the keyboard software and its layout, it does take some getting used to. It is a little tricky at first. It's not mapped like any other keyboard. If you're used to either software or something like Eclipse keys, you're going to need to relearn where your special keys, your shortcuts are. It does take a little bit of work, but once you get up to speed and you are used to it and the layout, then you can get typing at a pretty decent pace. Lastly, there are 2 cameras on this phone, a USB-C port and a 3.5mm headphone jack that will round out the hardware and design of the minimal phone. Kind of a nice fusion between old and new tech on the bottom, where you've got a 3.5mm headphone jack right next to a shiny brand new USB-C port. Let's start with addressing the cameras by talking about the 5-megapixel selfie camera, which is located in, honestly, the weirdest possible spot you could think of for a camera, which is right here at the bottom left-hand side of the phone beside the keyboard. I don't know if the e-ink screen components just took up too much room, or Minimal didn't want to make the device a little bit taller to put the camera in the typical spot at the top of the device, but regardless of all that and what happened, using it is complicated and tricky to say the least. It is super easy to block this camera with your hand, and framing your shots is very difficult because the camera is offset to the bottom. And of course, it doesn't help that you most likely won't be able to make out what's actually in frame or in focus when using the e-ink display. It's less than ideal, and it's a lot of work to use, all to capture an image with probably one of the worst selfie cameras I have ever used. Here's some sample photos so you can laugh along with me with how bad this selfie cam really is. And this experience of using the selfie camera leads me perfectly into the experience of using a lot of the other features on this phone through that display. And since we're on the topic of cameras, let's talk about the second camera, which is the single lens 16-megapixel sensor with autofocus that is on the back of the device. Now, there is a flash here, which can be handy and is a nice touch, but similar to the selfie camera, the e-ink display of the minimal phone effectively renders the process of taking photos with this device to a spray and pray operation. There's no better way to say it. Again, I'll throw up some samples as I talk about this more, but to put it plainly, the screen just can't render the detail or refresh fast enough to really tell you or give you an indication of what is being captured, what's in focus, or what's in frame. And while some of the photos I've captured have been okay, generally speaking, you're gonna end up with a mixture of blurry photos, grainy photos, overexposed photos, underexposed photos, or any combination thereof. It's just way more common to end up with a bad photo on this phone than a good one. So I would absolutely not purchase this phone if you are heavily reliant on mobile photography or if that's your shtick. Not gonna be something that you're gonna enjoy on this device. The experience capturing video is pretty similar to the experience with photos. And because of the interesting aspect ratio that this device captures in, because of its screen size, the final video files also aren't even well suited to sharing on social media or even for using in videos like this one. You'll probably see the letterboxing on either side with the sample footage that I've captured for you. And again, it's all because of the e-ink display on this phone, which is both the biggest pro and con of the minimal phone at the exact same time. To put it simply, the more time I spent using this phone, the more it dawned on me, and I came to the realization that it seems Minimal themselves is stuck between trying to cater to 2 very distinct groups of customers to appease their needs and their wants. Although the name of the company and the phone is Minimal, this is a full-fledged Android 14 device with the Google Play Store built in from the get-go. So you can run any app you want on this phone. Spotify, check. Reddit, check. Pokemon Go? Yeah, you can run it on here too. So while there are no theoretical limits to what you could run and use app-wise on the minimal phone, e-ink screen technology just overall is not suited to the vast majority of apps on phones these days. I mean, this is why you only really see e-ink technology being applied to writing tablets like the Remarkable, or ebook readers like your Kindle and your Kobos. But I also think this is Minimal's whole bet. If you give people access to Google Play to install your mission-critical apps, but you pair that with screen tech that is less than suitable to gaming, doom scrolling, or binge watching Netflix or YouTube, then people will just naturally use their phones less and recover some time they would have spent wasting online or scrolling through apps or playing games on their phone, thus breaking your bad habits or your smartphone addiction. And to Minimal's credit, I think they've actually kind of pulled that off successfully. As I already mentioned at the start of the video, e-ink screens experience ghosting. So as you scroll or navigate on the device, you get fragments of past screens or images or text temporarily left on the screen. If you've ever used an Etch-a-Sketch, kind of think about it like as you shake it to erase it, you always get left with some fragments of the image from before. This is exactly why Minimal put that dedicated refresh button on the side of the device. And actually being able to refresh and clear the screen is super handy, albeit you have to do it quite often on this phone. I actually wish all e-ink devices had this. I experience a lot of ghosting with my Remarkable, and it takes some time to clear up. A button to just wipe it out would be clutch on all e-ink devices going forward. E-ink screens are still my absolute favorite for reading. They're visible in any lighting conditions, they have zero glare when you're using it outdoors, and the Minimal phone could very easily replace your Kindle and potentially your smartphone all in one if you are looking to minimize the distractions that you have on your phone device. Naturally though, having this ghosting constantly present, scrolling Instagram or trying to watch YouTube is not a good user experience. And that's what Minimal, I think, wants to happen. Now, Minimal does give you the option to toggle between 3 different screen refresh speeds. So you can just hold that refresh button and you'll get sent into a utility screen where you can control the warmth of the screen brightness, keyboard backlight brightness, and the refresh rate. This is handy and allows you to navigate and use some apps better. Just know the trade-off is as you increase the refresh speed, you actually lower the resolution quality of the display. So if you want to use an ebook app, or you want to read docs from your Remarkable app, for example, you can keep it on the lowest refresh rate and you'll get the sharpest text. As you go to the faster refresh rate, you'll get less ghosting, faster refresh, but things will get a little bit less sharp around the edges. However, increasing the refresh rate has another trade-off, and it's the battery life. Normally, e-ink devices have amazing battery life, but with the Minimal phone, it's not always bad, but it's not always good. If you use this phone exactly as Minimal is intending and hoping that you do, reading ebooks, making calls, sending texts or emails, the battery life is actually phenomenal. Under what I would call light use or general use, the 3000 milliamp hour battery in this phone can last for a very long time, days and days and days on end without any problem. And in standby, you can easily go well over a week without needing to charge the phone. But as I said, if you crank up the refresh rate or you run anything more intensive, whether that's the camera or a game or even social media in some cases because of the refresh rate required for video, basically anything that's making that e-ink screen work harder than you would typically expect an e-ink display to be doing, you can literally watch the battery life drop right before your eyes in real time. When I was capturing the test images and videos for this specific review, I was watching the battery life drain at like 1% every 2 minutes. I had the camera app open, and it was very similar to when I was testing playing Pokemon Go on this phone. The battery life was dropping like a rock. I probably could have killed the entire thing from 100 to 0 in like 90 minutes of gameplay if I had left the phone unlocked that entire time. But with all that being said, I do know a lot of it sounded pretty negative. I actually think depending on how you intend to use this phone will ultimately dictate whether or not it's a good fit and purchase for you to make. If you want to use this phone the way that Minimal intends and things that you're going to, I actually think it's a really good compromise between smartphones and dumb phones that allows you to get the best of both worlds, with still minimizing distractions. It can run any of the modern apps that you might need to go about your life or work or job, but it has a solid keyboard, pretty much universal connectivity for all the different cell providers and signals and channels out there. Plus, there's a lot more stuff under the hood of this phone as well that I didn't even talk about, like Bluetooth 5.2, NFC, so you can go and use Google Pay to do contactless payments when you're out eating or getting a coffee. It's got the latest Wi-Fi 5 set in here. It's got Android Auto. It even has wireless Qi charging built in. That's a heck of a lot of capability and functionality built into a device that out of the box has a text-only launch screen and zero bloatware apps whatsoever installed. So honestly, if you still think the minimal phone has too many trade-offs to make it your dumb phone or more minimal phone of choice, maybe you're just not ready to buy a device like this and give up the modern conveniences of your iPhone or your Android device as it stands. The only caveat being that this is a brand new device. Minimal's a brand new company. It was backed through a crowdfunding campaign. So long term, it still leaves a lot of question marks. Will Minimal continue to survive? Will they continue to iterate, push out OTA updates, and improve the software and the user experience? There are a lot of questions there that I don't have the answers to. Nobody really does. But for a V1, I think this phone accomplishes the vast majority of what Minimal set out to do in its mission statement, without too much compromise overall. But as always, what do you guys think? Do you love the minimal phone? Do you hate the minimal phone? Do you have one? Do you want one? Let's have a conversation down in the comments below. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this device and where you see this going in the long run. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon in the next video.